And now, marine weather around Alaska.
And tonight, we can see the next system bringing gale force winds and rain into the western Aleutians out here. Light winds under high pressure for the remainder of the Bering Sea, right into the interior with snow beginning to end and push off to the east. More snow coming in with this trough here to the west central interior, and another trough about to move some more snow to the western Arctic coast. Showery for the panhandle, but becomes much drier tomorrow. Light winds across the Gulf of Alaska, eastern Bering Sea, all of the interior, all the way up to the Arctic coast. And then those gale force winds move in toward Adak in the afternoon hours there as winds diminish behind the front. And then for the next day, gale force winds, or at least approaching gale force with rain, Kodiak Island, increasing winds for the Alaska Peninsula, starting to get a little breezy even here along over the southwest interior. And this system here, just weak trailing edge of that front, bringing some rain into just west of Adak. Nice over the interior, light rain or light winds, no rain or snow, light winds, and could see a fair amount of sunshine all the way down to the North Gulf Coast. But moisture streaming northeastward off this warm front brings chance of rain, especially into the southern panhandle during the afternoon Wednesday. Tomorrow here for the southeast coast, on the south coast, west-southwest winds 15 knots, seas 8 feet, west winds 20 knots for the central coast, and then north to west winds at 10 knots for the north coast. Lynn Canal, south winds 20 knots, southeast at 20 for Stevens Passage. Clarence Strait, south winds 20 knots, seas there up to 7 feet. And then for Wednesday on the south coast, southeasterlies 15 knots, seas 7 feet. East-southeast 15 on the central coast, and the north coast east winds 15 to 20 knots with 5-foot seas. Over the inside waters here, central and southern inner channels, southeast winds at 10 knots, seas 2 to 3 feet. Lynn Canal, light north breeze at 10 knots. Prince William Sound, north winds 20 knots for Tuesday, seas at about 3 feet. And northerly winds 20 to 25 knots for the North Gulf Coast. Small craft advisories, Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay. North winds, northwest winds at 30 knots. Cook Inlet, northeast winds 10 knots, 2 to 3 foot seas. And for Wednesday, Cook Inlet here, again that tightening gradient here across southern Alaska. 30 knots out of the northeast here for the Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay, 25 knots out of the northeast southern Cook Inlet, north of the Forelands, north at 20 knots. Prince William Sound, northeast at 10, and for the North Gulf Coast, east-northeast, 20 to 25 knots. Kodiak Island, Tuesday, northwest, 20 to 25 knots. And the Alaska Peninsula here, north to northeast, 15 to 25 knots. Bristol Bay looking at a north wind at 15 knots with 4-foot seas. Excuse me. Kodiak Island, gale warnings here on the east side of the island for northeast winds up to 40 knots. North to northeast winds 25 to 40 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, northeast 30 for Bristol Bay. And for the Fox Islands, for Tuesday, east-northeasterly winds 15 to 20 knots. Southeast winds at 30 knots for Adak and Atka. Gale warnings here ahead of that front tomorrow. Slowly shifting eastward into Adak late tomorrow afternoon and evening. Call it southeast 40 to 45 knots. And then for Wednesday, southwest 15 to 20 knots there from Kiska to Shemya. And small craft advisories here for Adak and Atka, southeast at 30 knots, seas up to 13 feet. And for the eastern Aleutians, east-northeast 20 to 25 knots with seas as high as 10 feet. Southwest coast, west winds 20 knots for Tuesday, north 15-knot winds for Norton Sound and St. Lawrence Island, variable at 10 for the Pribilof, southwest 15 St. Matthew Island, 5-foot seas. Then for Wednesday, Yukon Delta coast, St. Lawrence Island, Norton Sound, east winds 15 knots, seas 3 feet. East winds 30 knots for St. Matthew Island, Pribilofs northeast at 25. And for the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast, for Tuesday, west winds 15 knots, seas 3 feet, west at 20 knots for the western Arctic coast. And the Chukchi Sea, northwest winds 15 to 20 knots. And then for Wednesday here, variable winds 10 to 15 knots for the Chukchi Sea, west 15 for the western Arctic coast, central coastal areas here, right through here, west at 20 knots with 4 to 5 foot seas. And then the far eastern Beaufort Sea coast looking at west winds at 25 knots.